And welcome to this episode of Vision Alignment, where we all have to understand we all have blindness in our lives. If we don't understand blindness in our lives, then we're going to understand our core beliefs, our core values, how important that is for them to be matched up with and in alignment with our vision. That's what the show is all about, is helping everyone to understand that that vision needs to be aligned with our core beliefs, our core values, and our core strengths. Oh, I'm so glad you're here with us this morning. We've got a great guest coming on today, but without introducing him formally, I'm going to bring him on and I'm going to ask him one question. And that question is, sir.
Yes, sir.
Did you first...
I'm here. I'm ready. I'm excited. Let's do this.
When did you first know your vision? When's your first recollection of that?
You are making quite an assumption there, sir. You're assuming that I have a vision and that I know what it is. I've been thinking about this, and I really don't have a crystal clear answer on this. I think there are a couple things that I learned fairly early on about myself. One was that I had the ability to make people laugh. And that kind of has brought me everything that I've gotten in my life in one way, shape, or another. I mean, it was my career for a while. We can talk about that at some point. But part of that is, part of making people laugh, part of humor is, first of all, seeing the funny in everything. Especially seeing the funny in the negative, because that's what humor is. Humor is about conflict. With no conflict, there's no story, there's no humor. So I think that's been really good for me. It's, when things go wrong, being able to see, okay, what's the funny in this? And you can't always see it right away. But humor is also about connecting different dots, like seeing a lot of different things and making connections. And since what I talk about is creativity and innovation, that's exactly what that's about also. So I think having a sense of humor, and I got that from my parents. I think that's been one core belief that's kind of led me through my life. And the other one, even though you only asked for one, I'm gonna give you a bonus here. I'm gonna give you a baker's duo, a baker, whatever, because it's not a dozen. But another thing that I got from my parents and others is this appreciation, passion, really, for lifelong learning. And not necessarily to any specific end, just learning for the sake of learning. One of the things I found is that I am happiest when I'm learning something new, and it almost doesn't matter what it is.
If you want to hear more, stick around. Bill Stainton, thank you very much for joining us today. You're awesome.
Well, thank you. As are you. Although it's harder for me because I'm here on the West Coast where it's very, very early. I don't know when the rest of you are watching this, but right now it is 7:05. I've been on camera since 6:30 in the morning, which is why I look like I look like this.
You look so good.
No, I don't. I look so much older than you. Well, perhaps I am.
Well, thank you again for being on today.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your stories. You went into a little bit of this, and obviously some of the people on the call know this our audience. And by the way, our audience, if you would do me a favor and put in a hashtag live, hashtag replay if you're listening on replay. If you would do me a favor and also put in your timeline of you a picture of you winking, and we're going to get to what that means in a minute. But a picture of you winking and put in a hashtag of Brian with one eye, a hashtag of winking without Wagner. So that's great. And then also tag me on that photo. You're going to be entered into a raffle where you can win a free copy of my book. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon. So Bill, Tell me a little bit about your story.
I was born in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Amish country, Pennsylvania Dutch country. My backyard growing up was an Amish dairy farm.
And that's a true story.
That's a true story. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not much of a story. It's just more of a fact, but it's true. Now, we were not Amish, but I had lots of friends who were Amish. So from there, I eventually got a job in television, which seems like an odd connection from, Amish dairy farm to a career in television. But that's just how it worked out. I realized that's what I wanted to do. And then I was lucky enough to get a job at the local television station in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, WGAL-TV. And the job was that of a glorified secretary. And by glorified, I mean not glorified. Basically, I answered viewer mail. But through a number of things, somehow that led to me actually starting to produce some stories. They got seen nationally. One thing led to another. We can talk about that a little later on. And then I managed to become the producer of a hit comedy TV show in Seattle, Washington called Almost Live. Now, it wasn't a hit comedy TV show when we started. In fact, it didn't look at all like it was going to be.
Because they got you.
Beg pardon?
Because they got you, and then they became a big success.
Well, I had a really, really good team, and we figured some things out along the way. I mean, we were a little dodgy at first, but we figured some stuff out. And eventually, once we figured, and this kind of goes along with vision alignment, once we really figured out what the show was, then everything became easier. Because, we know, oh, well, this is what we're going to do. This is who we are. This is the voice of our show. This is our type of humor. This is what works best for us. And then it became easier. Not easy, but easier.
That brings up a good question. What would you say is maybe this turning point? This is the turning point that when you discovered your vision. Maybe that's the answer, but I'm going to let you answer it.
Okay.
What is the biggest factor in your success?
I think it probably is that passion for lifelong learning and learning all kinds of things. I don't have a lot of areas of expertise. I've got a few. Innovation is one, humor, producing, things like that. But one of the things that I've always kind of the benchmark that I always wanted to have, but I don't always live up to this, is I want to know enough about virtually everything, just enough so that I could ask a question that would be of interest to an expert. I'll give you an example. My brother-in-law is one of the world's foremost experts on Beethoven. Now, I know music relatively well. My biggest distraction here at home is my Steinway grand piano downstairs.
Wow.
But I'm not a great student, but I do know enough that I can ask him a question that he finds interesting, and then he goes off. I was at a party once. Remember those days? That was so cool, going to a party with actual
yeah, back in the day.
And I was introduced to somebody who was a grad student in Russian history. Now, I don't know too much about Russian history. I've read a book here or there about it. But I asked him, I said, I don't know if this is right or not, but from what I've read, I get the idea that Tsar Nicholas II was a really bad leader, but a really good husband. What do you think about that? And that was an interesting question to this person. And then they ended up talking for 20 minutes and then told the host what a great conversationalist I was. I asked one question, but it's because I'd read a couple of books, I'd come across things. And so that's been really instrumental, just knowing a little bit about a lot of things.
Well, that's great. I'm gonna think though that there are still obstacles out there that you still try to overcome. Are there still obstacles for you that you're still trying to overcome?
Oh, of course, yeah. This will surprise a lot of people, but my movie star good looks do get in the way sometimes.
Of course.
Yeah. No, of course there are. There's always more things to learn, and obviously what we've all been through over the past year or so. We're recording this in January of 2021, and it's been a difficult time for a lot of us. and we've had to learn a lot of new skills for a lot of us, certainly in my business and yours, which is professional speaking. Everything that we were good at before is no longer relevant now. That's not entirely true, but a lot of things that we were good at, like getting on a stage and really capturing an audience of anywhere from 20 to 2,000 people who are right there in front of us. That sort of knowing how to navigate airports and get upgrades and things like all those skills. The skill of knowing in any major airport where the United Club is, because United is my airline. No, all of that completely worthless now. Completely worthless now. Instead, we've had to learn things like, what kind of camera should I get? What kind of microphone? What's the lighting? We've had to learn those kinds of things, and some of us have been kind of dragged into it, kicking and screaming. I kind of like it because, one, learning new things, and two, I've got a background in television, so it helped a little bit. But it's still tough. One of the big obstacles that I think, certainly in my profession and probably most professions, that you try not to get sucked into, but it's look, somebody else is doing it better. Or somebody else has a better studio, or somebody else is taller, or somebody else is younger, or somebody else is richer, or somebody else. There's that that comparison thing, and that's still tough sometimes, especially when you're in a public profession where you get to see other people's work.
Yeah.
See what they're doing. They've got more awards, they've got more of this or something like that. And the thing is that the audience, the people that you're here to serve, they don't really care about that.
No.
And that's I think when we take our eye off the ball when we take it off of the people who we're there to serve, no matter what our business is. When we take it off the people that we're there to serve and put it onto our competitors, and then have that that envy kind of thing.
So speaking of that, people that we're here to serve, so let's bring in the people that are on the call today with us, and we're here to serve them. So I want to make sure that we say hello and good morning to Ted. Thank you very much, Ted.
Hello,
Good
Ted.
Thank you. And then there is Ted needs to come in again live. Yeah, and then Wes on.
Yes. Wes is one of your regulars.
Yeah.
Hey, Wes. How are you?
Wes is a great guy. So yeah, coming in from Ohio. That's good.
A lovely state. Used to be my neighbor state when I was in Pennsylvania.
What's that?
Well, Ohio was my neighbor state because I was born and raised in Pennsylvania. So
Right.
Ohio was just one state over. It was the lesser state, but still,
Yeah, well, there are some Buckeyes that might disagree with that, but
there are. And again, as I mentioned, my brother-in-law and sister, they both teach at the University of Michigan. So I've got Ohio animosity all over the place.
Wow. Yeah. So they're definitely not friends.
Right. But they're good people.
I'm sure they are good people.
Yes, that's right. You are one of the regulars.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for being on, Ted. I appreciate Ted. So also, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about the winking with Wagner. It's the big thing. So having a wink workbook has really been helpful to a lot of people. So you don't have a wink workbook? Bill, do you have a wink workbook?
A wink workbook?
Yeah.
Startlingly, I do not.
You need to get one. So let me show you where you can get one.
Yes, please do.
And let's see. So right here. So that's where you can get a wink workbook. BrianWagner.podia. And also all the people on the call can take this down too. You can get your own wink workbook. And it's really intended to be able to help you to understand your core beliefs, your core values, and what it is you're trying to do in the world, how you can achieve that. So we have a speech coming up next Wednesday with the Golden Gate Breakfast Club, and we're going to help them to go through the wink process. So the wink process is good.
Yeah, very good.
And then also want to make sure that anybody on that joins the Vision Insights, it's my kind of newsletter, if you will, where I talk about vision, I talk about blind spots and all that. So really it's a great piece of information for you all to have. So having said that, let's go back to you. What's that?
You are a busy man, Brian Wagner.
I try. It's all good. So tell me a little bit more about you, and where do we leave off?
I don't remember where we left off, but here's something I was thinking about what we might be able to talk about that has to do with vision alignment, with some of the things that got me to where I am, wherever that may happen to be. And I was reminded of something.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. That's right. It's Seattle. Actually, it was TV that brought me to Seattle. But it's part of taking a small step that sets everything else in motion. When I first got my job in television in my hometown, so I told you I was a glorified secretary. Basically, I answered viewer mail.
Yeah.
So here's what I did. On my first day there at the job, I answered mail, did all that kind of stuff. 5 o'clock came, everybody else left. I stayed and I found my way to the engineering department. And I asked them, do you have an instruction manual for the editing machines? And they said, yeah, here you go. And they handed it to me. So I stayed all night and I taught myself how to edit. I did that for the first week. I taught myself how to edit. And then the second week I did it with the camera. Do you have an instruction manual for the camera? Yeah, we do. So I did that. So I taught myself how to edit. I taught myself how to use the camera. And then I waited for somebody to get sick. And eventually somebody got sick and we were going to, there was a shoot scheduled. And I went to my boss because they were going to cancel the shoot. I said, John, I think, I can probably handle this. It wasn't a major shoot. It was just, a little piece. I said, but, so why don't you let me handle it? And, if it sucks, then just don't air it. And you're no worse off than you are now.
Right.
Said, oh, okay. So I went out there and I shot the piece and I edited it and it was good. Ended up being really good. So I said, oh, okay. So, and eventually one of the producers left and I became a producer and my stuff got seen nationwide. And so somebody in Portland saw it, hired me to go work in Portland. That led to the job in Seattle. And then that lasted 15 years. Here's the thing I don't understand though, Brian. So for 15 years, I was the executive producer of this sketch comedy TV show called Almost Live. We had interns for each one of those 15 years. On the first day of every internship, I would sit down with the intern and I say, look, you're the intern for this show, but this is a big TV station. It was a fabulous TV station, King TV in Seattle. I said, for the duration of your internship, you've got the keys to the candy store. If there's something else you want to do someday, like if you want to sit, if you want to spend a day with the news crew or with the assignment editor or with engineering or something like that, let me know. I'll set it up. Yes, you are the intern for our show, but you've got the whole station at your disposal. Just let me know what you want to do. In 15 years, not one intern ever took me up on that. And I don't understand. These are people who purportedly want to get a job in television.
Yeah.
And here we are at one of the best stations in the country, which it was, King Broadcasting, King TV, one of the best stations in the country. And I'm saying, look, here's the candy store. I got the keys to it, and it's yours. Not one took me up on it. How is that possible when you've got this opportunity and you don't take it? You interviewed Darren LaCroix some time ago, and he talked about stage time because he was a comedian when he was a stand-up comedian, and one of his mentors said, get stage time. Never turn down stage time. Never turn down stage time. It's like when you've got opportunities, why would you not take them? I just don't understand that.
Yeah, and so I think that's a message to us all. To when we're in that position to have something to take advantage of. You don't mean you're taking advantage of it. You're actually, and not in a negative way anyway. So you're actually doing what you should be doing what you say you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's all about intending to make a life for yourself is a life that you want to live. So why not do it?
Yeah, exactly. And look, you and I both know this opportunity is all around. The opportunities we have are just, there's never been a better time for opportunity. We talk about, so we've all been through a year of quarantine and, the pandemic, we have to stay inside, all that sort of thing. And, a lot of us grumble about it and whine about it. And yeah, I think we all do from time to time, but some people never get out of that. They're just whining about it. I'm thinking, okay, let's look at this. Okay, you are quarantined. Okay, fine. There has never been a better time to be quarantined. I mean, we are quarantined in a time where we've got Netflix and Spotify and the internet and Masterclass and all this sort of thing. We've got, we've got Amazon Prime. We've got, overnight delivery. And by the way, even though we're quarantined, we can still go to the grocery store. You put a mask on, you can go to a grocery store like this. What you're whining about this? This is prime time for you can get books. You can download a book in 3 seconds on any topic you want, anything you want to learn, to develop yourself for when we come out of this time. It's all right there, and much of it, if not most of it, is free.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. And a lot of us wouldn't have been here 10 years ago. I mean, or less than that. So
right.
It's been great. So,
yeah.
Bill, we're already like 22 minutes into this.
How did that happen?
Gosh. So this has been phenomenal, but we haven't gotten to the best part of the story. At least I think it's the best part of the story.
Okay.
And that's where it is. What's that?
I can't wait to hear what this is.
Well, that's the whole Bill Nye thing. How did that happen?
Yeah, Bill Nye the science guy. So Bill Nye, let's see, how can I how best to backtrack on this? During the early iteration of our show, we used to have the TV show that I produced, Almost Live. We used to have guests. It was an hour long, and yes, there you go. Oh, Beth, Beth is fantastic, and if you need to know anything about any app in the world, Beth is your person. So she is absolutely a lifelong learner.
How do you pronounce her last name?
Don't ask. Beth, how do you pronounce it? Zisness, I believe. I don't know. I usually never pronounce it. You'll notice I assiduously just said Beth, and then you had to call me on it, Brian.
Fine. Sorry.
Anyhow, so we used to have guests on our show, and one Saturday, we taped our show on Saturday. One Saturday, we finally got a big name guest, which was hard to get in Seattle at the time, and and so our guest that night was going to be Johnny Depp. Because Johnny Depp was just up the road in Vancouver, BC, shooting a TV series called 21 Jump Street. And we got him. So we're like, oh, this is going to be great. And we're just so excited because, this is going to be the best show ever. We got Johnny Depp on. And then that morning I get a phone call from Johnny, and he cancels. He says, I'm really sorry, but, they scheduled reshoots for Jump Street. I can't get out of it. I'm going to have to cancel. And now, Brian, I'm sure you've had that experience too, where you think you've done everything right. You've done all the planning. You've dotted all the I's. You've crossed all the T's. Everybody watching this has had that experience where everything is in alignment, and then all of a sudden the universe pulls the rug out from under you. What happens? There's a pandemic. There's an earthquake. Your car gets a flat tire. This happens. Things like this will happen. And okay, so what are we going to do? So we're all trying to think, okay, who can we get? There's no time to fly anybody in because it's the day of the show. We have to have somebody local, somebody who's already in town. So, okay, who can we get? What about, one of the Seahawks? No, they're out of town this weekend. What about that cute new anchor over at Como TV? No, she's in rehab. She was, and she got fired.
Oh, no. And
it's starting to look desperate because we're all like, who can we get? And all of a sudden, my lowest paid writer, and you know how this is, Brian, and you know this also. We tend to discount anything the junior person says.
Sure.
My lowest paid writer pops up and says, "Oh, I might be able to do something with liquid nitrogen." We're like, you do not understand that we're looking for a guest to interview. Well, my lowest paid writer was a guy named Bill Nye. But at that time, we're just like, Bill, the grown-ups are trying to solve a problem.
Go back to the kids' table.
Yeah. Stay at the kids' table. How often do we do that with somebody? and here's the thing, the great ideas can come from anybody, but they don't always come looking like a great idea. Sometimes they come looking like insanity, especially when they come from Bill Nye. Sometimes the great idea doesn't always look like the great idea until you dig into it a little bit. What happened was we got more and more desperate because, the clock is ticking. We're going to have, in a couple hours, we're going to have a studio audience of 175 people, and, we need to have a show. So finally, one of us, I think it was the host of the show at the time, a guy named Ross Schaefer, said, okay, all right, Bill, what are you talking about? Which, by the way, was said on virtually a daily basis at Almost Live. Bill, what are you talking about?
We have no
And he
idea.
started to paint this picture for us because Bill Nye was and is a science guy. I mean, he studied engineering at Cornell. Carl Sagan was one of his professors, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
During the off season, he used to work at a little airplane manufacturing company near here called Boeing, designing and building things that you and I are not allowed to know about. So he started telling us, well, no, liquid nitrogen, you can do cool things. And he started explaining it to us. And we thought, that actually might work. So we put him on the air really just as a place filler. We needed to fill the time. But it was a hit. And that night he became Bill Nye the Science Guy. And so, I mean, it's a great lesson that, first of all, I never thought of myself as the kind of guy who goes through life with blinders on, like closed-minded, because come on, I'm a creative person. I read about everything. I'm open-minded. I do all that kind of stuff, right? And yet when Bill Nye said I could do something with liquid nitrogen, I had those blinders on. And in my we all did. In those blinders, we were looking for a guest to interview. And we couldn't see other options because of the blinders until Ross Schaefer lowered his blinders and said, all right, tell us what you're talking about. And then he told us. And here's the thing that I've kind of discovered about that incident since then, as I've thought about it. What really happened was Bill Nye asked a different question than we did. And Brian, you know this also. Sometimes when you ask a different question, it changes your perspective on everything. We were all asking the question, who can we get to interview? Bill Nye was asking the question, how can we fill the time? You see how that changes everything and all of a sudden opens up all new possibilities? So a lot of times we get stuck in life. It's because we keep asking the same question. Oh, why aren't I rich? Why aren't I rich? Why aren't I rich? Or something like that. First of all, that's a terrible question to ask. Why aren't I? Because your brain will come up with all sorts of answers. Your brain will try and answer any question you put to it. So if you ask, why aren't I rich? Your brain will say, well, you're stupid and you're ugly and nobody likes you. Okay, fine. These are all, reasons why you're not rich.
Good enough.
Yeah. Ask a better question. When you ask a better question, or even sometimes just a different question, just to get your brain looking at things a different way, instead of who can we get to interview on the show to how can we fill the time? Oh, now all of a sudden we've got a whole different sandbox to play in.
Yeah. It's it opens your eyes.
Yeah. By the way, Bill Nye now is worth a lot more than I am. He's much, much, much richer than I am. So, there's nothing quite like watching your lowest paid writer just rocket past you in terms of fame and wealth.
Is he still in Seattle?
Oh, heavens no. He's got places in Los Angeles and New York.
Oh, wow.
He does come and visit every now and then, or at least, pre-pandemic he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So we're really at about at our time, but there are still so many questions. I'm willing
to stay on if you want to.
You can stay on.
Or maybe that's an awkward offer. No, I don't really want to, Bill. No.
So yeah, I love this. So let me ask you then. What do you do? You have 29 Emmys, and obviously all those didn't come from Bill Nye. But what do you do to remain to have clarity in day out?
It comes with intention. Clarity. Clarity is something that you have to keep working on day in and day out. It starts off, well, first of all, it starts off with the morning. I'm a big fan. There's a book called The Miracle Morning. I don't follow its tenets exactly, but I do have a morning routine because I really do believe that the way you start your day is what sets things in motion. And so every day I've got my routine where I meditate, I read for 20 minutes, I do some writing of some sort, whether it's journaling or just, a list of things I'd like to get done during the day or something like that. I get some exercise in. So there's certain things I do to start every single day, and that's one of them is getting up early. Not normally this early.
I knew that was coming.
I mean, I used to be I was a night owl. I was a rock and roll guy. I played drums and keyboards and guitar and bass in a lot of bands. So I mean, I was a night owl, and I would sleep in, and I realized that's just not serving me anymore. So I changed. I forced myself to change, and it can be done. Those of you say no, I'm a night owl. If that's working for you, fine. But if not, you can change. I've been reading a book called The One Thing, which I've had on my bookshelf for quite a while. And
who's it by?
Where is it there? I'm looking at it. I can't remember who's on. Oh, Keller. It's the guy who founded Keller Williams Realty.
Oh,
okay. Keller, maybe, I think, but it's a good book. But they talk about it talks about, first of all, don't do everything. Figure out what's the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference. But they talk about habit and discipline, and I think it was Darren when you asked him what his biggest the biggest thing that helps in his life. He says discipline. One of the points that it makes in the book, The One Thing, is that no, discipline is not it, because nobody is disciplined really all the time.
Right.
All you don't need 100% discipline 24/7. What you need is enough discipline to make something a habit. Once it becomes a habit, then you don't need the discipline anymore. Like when I was trying to become a morning person, it took discipline for the first roughly 66 days is about what it typically takes to turn something into a habit. I know people say 20 days, or whatever. And sometimes it's more than that. But all you need is enough discipline to make something a habit. So if you want to do something in your life, if you want to stop checking Facebook every 5 minutes or stop checking your email, you need enough discipline until it becomes a habit. Once it becomes a habit, then you go work on the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing. So I forget what question of yours led to this, so I'm rambling now. Kind of par for the course for me.
Anyway, so let's see. Beth Z.
I'm going to say Z Smith.
Okay.
Beth, let us know if that's correct or not. Yeah, having the one thing. That's right, Curly from City Slickers. But for you kids, City Slickers was an old movie starring Billy Crystal and Jack Palance. But it is actually, Beth, the same thing, because at one point Jack Palance is this old grizzled cowboy. At one point, Billy Crystal's character, Jack Palance, says, "You want to know what the secret to life is?" And Billy Crystal's character says, "Yeah, what is it?" And Jack Palance says, "Just one thing." And Billy says, "What is it?" Jack says, "That's what you've got to figure out." Because it's different for each person, but like once you figure out that one thing, and this goes, and this, oh, look how beautifully this all ties together. This goes into vision alignment. Once you kind of discover what's your one thing, what's your purpose, what's your why, as Simon Sinek would say, everything else becomes easier, because now you have a focus. Now you've got your GPS, you've got your roadmap, you know your destination.
Yeah.
And if you know your destination, and here's the thing, once you know a destination, there are any number of ways to get to the destination. So you still have all kinds of freedom, but as long as you have your eye on the prize, and I say your eye singularly because it's Brian. There we go, Brian, one eye. Once, of course, apps can help with discipline, Beth. Of course, Beth would say that. Yeah, stay focused is a good one. In fact, I should use it more often. Once you kind of figure out what your one thing is, like what is your one thing, again, everything else becomes easier. Like I said, when I was producing my TV show, once we kind of realized, oh, this is what the show is, this feels right. Okay, we still had to invent a brand new show every week. It was still hard work, but we knew what we were doing. We knew what the goal was. We knew what we wanted it to look like and feel and sound like.
It was aligned.
It was aligned, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good stuff. That'll sell right there.
How much of a cut do I get? I can't remember. I don't think I've gotten the contract from you yet.
Yeah, well, it's in the mail.
Is it in the mail? Okay, perfect.
Right. So what does your next level of success look like?
I think we all go through different levels of success. I mean, for a while, for a while it was the awards, it was the Emmys and that sort of thing. And that's all fine, and getting the CSP and the CPAE, which are different awards in my profession of professional speaking, the National Speakers Association. Yeah, Beth, sorry, it happened. So I think you kind of go through those stages, and eventually you realize that that's not it. That's just acquisition. Getting more money, getting more awards, getting more this, that, and the other thing. And eventually you kind of realize that it's kind of meaningless. Somebody asked me once about the Emmys, because I was fortunate enough to win 29 Emmys. And they said, which is the most meaningful to you? I said, well, the first one was because if you're a producer, you want to be an Emmy award-winning producer.
Sure. So
you get the first Emmy. Boom. Okay, I'm an Emmy award-winning producer. Then all you want in the world is that second one, so you can be a multiple Emmy award-winning producer. So I got my second Emmy about 3.5 minutes after I got my first Emmy. And then I got 27 more, and none of those other 27 mean as much as those first two, because it's just like, okay, how many do you actually need? And all of a sudden you start to realize, and this comes with, it's not necessarily a function of age. Sometimes it is. It's just kind of a function of starting to figure some things out, that those aren't really the important things. Now, that's not to say they're completely unimportant. I mean, the fact that I have 29 Emmys certainly has been a good marketing thing, and it sets me apart from a lot of other people who do what I do. So I certainly don't disparage any of that. That's good. I don't mind the effort I put into accumulating whatever wealth I have, because that's your safety net. As one of my early mentors, she owned the TV station, and up until, well, she used to be the richest person in the state of Washington and the richest person I knew, until a guy named Bill Gates kind of took over.
Yeah.
But she told me, she said, a great lesson about money. She said, money's like oxygen. Money's like air. You need it in order to do anything else, but you only need as much as you need. Right. Like, it shouldn't be, oh, okay, Brian, I'm not happy unless I have all of your air as well. No, it doesn't, it's fine. Yeah. Nobody accumulates air just to have more air. It's like, once you have enough air to live, like, you don't even focus on it. Now, I'm a scuba diver. I've run out of air 65 feet below the surface. At that point, all you can think about is, I need air. Just like if all of a sudden you're in a financial hole and you're facing bankruptcy, all you can think about is, I need money. And that's valid. Mm-hmm. Once you get back to the surface, once you have enough air, then it's, okay, what do I do with it? Okay, the air gives me life. Okay, what am I going to do with the life? The purpose of life is not to get more and more air. The purpose of life shouldn't be to get more and more money. The purpose of life is, okay, that's just a resource. What do you do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's again, it's the one thing, and it's different for every person. Yeah. Beth, I'm good with the acquisition phase. When does that start? Beth, it starts whenever you say it does. You are in control.
So tell me, you're underwater 65 feet without air.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, first you panic for a short time, but then the training comes in. I mean, I've had a similar experience. I'm also a private pilot, and I've been piloting a single engine airplane and had the engine go out, and your training takes over, and then when you finally get on the ground, which I was able to do, then that's when the panic kicks in. You go, oh, here's what could have happened. But what do you do? It becomes almost instinct. If you have enough training. I mean, the first thing is, okay, I get up there. I got, because that's where the air is.
Right.
But you also realize that if you panic, you're going to use up, whatever oxygen reserves you have in your body, in your cells. If you panic, you're just going to use them faster. So the first thing is just calm down a little bit.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. Learned 15 new things from you today.
Wow. And I'm only charging $10 per thing. So I've made $150 just off Beth alone.
What a deal.
That's fantastic. See, Beth, I've got my acquisition in order, in place. but yeah, part of it is, and I think that may be good advice for people who may be going through a panic situation. Just take a breath, which is one of the things that meditation does for you. It kind of teaches you how to do that. Once you turn it into a habit, you just like, okay, I can, yeah,
Yeah.
I can focus, I can get centered,
Mm.
and think it through. That's one of the things that we don't do. I mean, people don't do this. It's like when I talk to professional speakers, one of the things I say, kind of jokingly but not joking, is that we don't rehearse. Speakers don't rehearse. They don't. We think we do, but we don't really rehearse, because people don't know what rehearsing really is. They just think, I went over the lines and I know the lines, therefore I've rehearsed. That's not rehearsing. That's just line memorization. But another thing we don't do is we don't think, by and large. Very few of us actually think. And even fewer of us actually set time in the calendar to think. So here's something: if whatever you're going through in your life right now, like pick a challenge. You don't have to say it out loud, but pick a challenge that you're going through. Here's what I want you to do: put it on your calendar. Schedule 1 hour sometime this week. 1 hour where you can just think about it. And I want you to do focused thinking, because again, we talked about how your brain will try and answer any question you put to it. So give it a good question, you'll get a better answer. So ask a question. I was working with a management team a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, try this question. Like, focus on this question for an hour this week, each of you, and then get back together and see what you've come up with. Here's the question: what is it that our customers are going to need 2 years from now? And how can we start delivering that in 6 months? And think about that for an hour. Now, you may not come up with anything, but you might, just like, so if you ask yourself so don't just say, okay, I'm going to sit down for an hour, I'm going to think. Well, what'll happen is your mind will start going all kinds of, but if you think, okay, what's a good question I can ask myself? Like, okay, and not, why aren't I rich? But how can I double my net worth in the next 9 months? What in what ways can I do that? Okay, that's something you can work if that's your focus. Or what are 3 things I can do next week to improve my relationship with my significant other? Sit down with that for an hour. That gives you a focus, but schedule it, because otherwise we never get to it. We never get to it. Okay, I do have enough air, Beth. You're right. So, schedule time to think. It's the most important thing that we can do. And you've got this amazing machine right here, free and clear. We each own one. It's the brain. It's right there. And we don't use it because we think, oh, we got to be busy. We got to keep being busy. And if I'm sitting there not doing anything, I'm not, that's the most important time you can have per week, the time that you'd spend on focused thinking with a good question. And, the question can vary from week to week, of course.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good practice. I love it. What do you do to, obviously, meditation is one thing. Are there other things you do to recharge?
Oh, yeah. I told you my biggest distraction is my grand piano. But I've also got a couple guitars and ukuleles and a bass, and I don't have a drum set anymore. And my neighbors are very thankful that I no longer have a drum set. My nephew. But music, I mean, there's almost not a time when I don't have music playing in the house. Any kind. Again, I've been a professional musician for a long time, and that's just huge to me. And it also goes back to what I said about I'm always happiest when I'm learning something new. I'm always learning a new piece on the piano. I'm working on some pieces by Eric Satie now. Wonderful. Listen to his No CN number 5. That's what I'm playing. I've been playing over and over again now. I'm learning it. Gnossienne. Gnossienne. The guy's name is Eric Satie, spelled Satie, and it's his No CN number 5, which is the piece that I'm currently playing. Just check it out on Spotify. It's really cool and unusual, but it's just fun because it's like, oh, I've got to learn something new. So it's that's my
So is that classical music?
It's classical music. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of semi-modern classical. He was a 20th century guy.
Hmm.
My brother-in-law also wrote the definitive biography on Satie.
Wow.
But it's I mean, it's not classical like Chopin, although I love playing Chopin or Bach or something like that. But it's but yeah, but it's not the Beatles or Billy Joel or Bon Jovi. I play all them as well. But
So what's your favorite to listen to?
depends on my mood. I listen to a lot of classical. At night, I'll listen to quiet jazz, usually piano jazz, not always. Um, One of my favorite things to do, and I can't wait until I can start doing it again, is going to a loud, raucous blues club, drinking beer, and sitting in on drums. That's my happy place. That's sitting behind a set of drums in a blues club is just absolutely my happy place. So it's kind of all over the board. But you know what, Beth? I actually have been the more I listen to and watch hip hop performances, the more I appreciate. Gosh, the virtuosity, the verbal virtuosity. Now the music doesn't do it because I'm a melody guy. I think I mean, I'm one of the world's foremost experts on the Beatles, and when people ask me why the Beatles are so great, there's all kinds of reasons. Ultimately, it comes down to they wrote better melodies than anybody. They just wrote phenomenal melodies. There are a lot more things, but when you take it down to its absolute core essence, they wrote great melodies. And Kurt Cobain and I used to talk because Nirvana, they're here in Seattle and everything. So when I was doing TV, I used to hang out with Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and people like that. Kurt Cobain said that's one of the things he learned from the Beatles is melody, which is weird. Like the king of grunge talking about melody.
Yeah.
But how do we get into?
I have no idea.
Hip hop. So hip hop doesn't have that much melody, at least not much that I can ascertain. So I tended to kind of discount it. Plus, look, I am not the target audience for that. But really break it down. Oh my gosh, the verbal virtuosity and the rhymes and the internal rhymes and it's absolutely it's astounding. Some of these hip hop artists do verbally what Bach did musically, and that is a high calling.
Wow.
Beth
says Lizzo.
Oh, Lizzo's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal. Yeah,
she's good.
Yeah,
I agree. Oh, I love it. So tell me, you talked a little bit about recharging and music and how important that is.
Naps are really underrated.
Yeah. So yeah, you're talking my language.
Yeah. Although again, my message is about meditation. I was listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast with Jerry Seinfeld, who I used to work with. So I'm always interested because Jerry's such a craftsman and takes his work so seriously. Jerry is a big proponent of meditation. And Tim said, "How often do you do it?" And Jerry says, "At least twice a day." He says, "What happens is whenever I know that I'm out of gas, like if I'm sitting writing and for 20 minutes nothing is coming, I realize, oh, I'm out of gas. So I'll sit and I'll meditate for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and that recharges. That recharges me. And again, it's free. It doesn't cost anything.
Right.
If you want to learn how to meditate, go to YouTube. Just whatever. There's instructions for everything, and it doesn't cost. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to buy a Steinway grand piano.
Beth is kind of coming here, so it's only all in with the naps. That's good.
Naps are great. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fairness, Beth, Brian dropped Bill Nye's name first. That wasn't me. I'll take the blame for Seinfeld and Nirvana. It's
all my fault.
It's all his fault. He started the ball.
Wow. Well, this has been great to have you on, Bill. I mean, Bill.
Bill, that's correct. right there.
Yeah, right. It's been great to have you on it. I appreciate your time. You're getting up early for us, all that. This has been phenomenal. So what is the one thing you might want to leave our audience with? If there's something to help them to get through their day, to get through the COVID, to get through, quarantine, whatever it is they're getting through, what would you leave them with?
Two things, both of which we've alluded to. First, this week, schedule at least 1 hour on your calendar to think and come up with a question that you're going to focus. Focused thinking. And make it a good question, not a yes or no question. Yeah, but come up with a good question that's going to move the ball forward. That if you come up with an answer, that will move the needle for you in whatever aspect of your life, spiritual, relationship, wealth, business, whatever. Just pick one and come up with a question that if you have an answer for it, it will move the needle. And schedule 1 hour with a pad of paper. Don't do it in front of your computer. Okay. Do it with a pad of paper, because there's something about actually writing something down that anchors it more in your brain. Just get away from the electronics. Sit in a comfortable chair and do that. And the second thing I would say is to make it a habit is learn something new. Again, this week, listen to a podcast you wouldn't normally listen to. Read a blog or an article, or start a book that you wouldn't normally read. Listen to a piece of music that you wouldn't normally listen to. If you're a hip hop person, listen to Satie's No CN Number 5. If you're a Bach person, listen to some Lizzo. Just start collecting different dots. Creativity, innovation, great ideas come from connecting dots. People think it's the lightning bolt that only strikes the gifted few. We are all the gifted few. Innovation comes from connecting dots, seeing two or more things and finding a connection between them. But you can't find the connection unless you've already collected the dots. So collect different dots, read different things, have a conversation with somebody you wouldn't normally have a conversation with, and start making that a lifelong habit. Read a book on Russian, on Russian history. Just learn something you wouldn't. Wow, Donnie Most, yeah, he was Ralph Mouth on Happy Days. Very, very good. Swam next to Donnie Most in a lake. Now that's an obscure. That's an obscure reference. That's really cool. Yeah, Donnie Most. Very, very good. So those are the two pieces of advice. And try and do it enough so it becomes a habit. Again, we talk about you need enough discipline so something becomes a habit. If you can make setting aside an hour a week of thinking time a habit, you are going to be a different person a year from now than you are right now. You're going to be a different person 2 months from now than you are right now. And if you start collecting different dots, every now and then just read something that you wouldn't normally read. Listen to something you wouldn't normally listen to. Just go on YouTube and find a weird video that's like, oh, I have no interest in this whatsoever. Then watch that video. And as you're watching it, think, how can I apply this to my world? Notice the question is not, can I apply this to my world? Because again, your brain will try and answer any question you put to it. If you say, can I apply this to my world? Your brain can say, nope, time for lunch. But if you say, how can I apply this to my world? Maybe you're watching a video or reading an article about, crochet, and you have no interest in crocheting. That's not a hobby of yours. But you watch and go, okay, how can I apply this to my world? And then just sit and force your brain to come up with a few answers. One of those might be the thing that leads to, wait a minute, you know what? I'll end with this last story. That there was a guy, there was a Trappist monk named Robert Palladino who taught calligraphy in a small liberal arts college just outside of Portland, Oregon. And again, a Trappist monk teaching calligraphy makes sense. A monk teaching calligraphy. Well, there was a guy who was a student there at this college, and he wasn't a student. He actually dropped out, but he was still hanging around auditing classes, not in a creepy way, but whatever. And he happened to audit this class on calligraphy. Now, this guy, you've never heard of Robert Palladino, the Trappist monk, but you've probably heard of this student. His name was Steve Jobs. Well, Steve he dabbled in computers. He was interested in computers. Now, you and I both know, Brian, that a lot of people who are interested in computers, that's all they do. That's all they read. They only read computer stuff. They only talk to computer people. They only take computer classes. Steve Jobs took a course in calligraphy. Talk about a weird random dot that he collected. So collecting it's the first step. Connecting it's the second step. So when he and his partner, Steve Wozniak, decided, let's build our own computer, Steve Jobs connected two dots that nobody had ever connected before: calligraphy and computers, both of which existed, both of which were out there, but nobody connected them until Steve Jobs said, "Oh, can we build a computer that can do calligraphy?" And that became Apple Computer, which became the world's first $1 trillion company and led to something which almost all of us have right now, an iPhone.
Yeah.
Now, who would have thought that this thing that we have in our pocket, that for most of us is really, if we think about a real significant other, it's the first thing we talk to and touch in the morning. It's the last thing we talk to and touch in the evening. It shouldn't be that way, but it is, and it is. Who would have thought that owes its very existence in part to a Trappist monk at Reed College? So it's all about connecting dots, but because it would have been very easy for Steve Jobs to say, okay, that's separate. That has nothing to do with computers. But instead he said, how can I apply this? And that's the key question. So when you read something different, when you have a conversation with somebody who you wouldn't normally have a conversation with, when you listen to a podcast that you wouldn't normally listen to, and then you ask yourself that question, how can I apply this to the situation I'm facing right now? How can I apply this to my current challenge? How can I apply this to my current opportunity? You may come up with something, but at least it'll open your brain and you'll start to look at a situation differently, just like Bill Nye looked at the situation differently and led to Bill Nye the Science Guy. We were all saying, who can we have as a guest? Bill Nye asked a different question. So give yourself permission to ask different questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks. Take care.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye. Wow. What a great guest. We've got some other great guests that are coming up this week. Please stick around, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about them tomorrow. But there's also, I want to make sure that you understand that Ron Carr is coming on tomorrow. There are other guests that we have coming on. I have a list in front of me somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So that's one of the guests we have. There are others like him. There are more speakers that are coming on this week. So look for those announcements. Look for the lives that are coming on, the information you're going to find on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you find your lives. So thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you all. And as always, keep one eye on the road.